right, guys. So, welcome back. If you're on YouTube, welcome back to the video. You know, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like, and maybe even hit the bell. But let me back up when I speak, because it might get a little bit serious. Actually, no, hold on. I need to get back up because today we are looking at some crime. And the reason why this one is so crazy is because the title of this video. All right. How the internet cracked a 30-year-old case police called impossible. Now, that is pretty crazy because, police are supposed to be some pretty good detectives. But the internet, which is true, people find anything. Anything. So, today, this is what we'll watch. All right. So enough talk. Let me get these headphones on. All right. Hey, say no more. Let's get into it.
Tentgirl.com is a domain that 30 years ago began displaying this eerie sketch of a woman, her identity, a mystery.
Oh, that is a weird sketch, not gonna lie.
Decades to solve. That was until one dedicated, bordering on obsessed internet sleuth finally cracked the case.
Hold on. Before we start, nose blow. Nose blow. All right. All right.
Began with a horrifying discovery on the night of May 17, 1968, in Georgetown, Kentucky. A well digger named Wilbur Riddle was walking around Route US 25 while he waited for his boss to show up. He was scanning the ground for discarded telephone pole insulators.
Okay.
An easy way to make a few bucks back in the day.
Why that kind of
But then, something unusual caught his eye. Amid the scattered glass bottles and debris,
that like a body? That's got to be a body bag. Not gonna lie.
Bundle reflected the headlights of passing cars. A green tarp bunched up in the brush. Strange, he thought, moving in for a closer look. Curious, he nudged the bundle with his foot, sending it rolling down the embankment. But when his foot touched the bundle, instead of feeling hard like scrap metal or some other trash, it felt soft.
That's a body.
The tarp unraveled slightly as it tumbled, and for a brief moment, Wilbur thought it might be a dead animal. However, a dread crept into his gut, and so he forced himself to step closer and investigate. He prodded the bundle again, and this time, it felt harder. Focusing his eyes on that spot, the hairs on the...
Wait, so before we really get deep into this, how does this have anything to do with tentgirl.com?
The back of his neck stood up, and his throat tightened as a realization slowly dawned on him. It appeared to be a body leg. And the hard part he had just kicked, it was the head.
Wow.
Immediately after seeing the macabre sight, Wilbur hopped into his truck and drove like a man possessed to the nearest gas station, which was 2 miles away. There, he frantically called the authorities about his discovery. Shortly after, Sheriff Bobby Vance, along with Deputy Jimmy Williams and Coroner Kenneth Grant, met with the still-shaken well digger, who led them to the body's location. As is protocol, they asked Wilbur what he was doing in the backwoods of town, for which he replied that he was an assistant well digger and that he, along with his boss, were hired on a drilling project nearby. He stated that since his boss left a note that he was going to be late and that he shouldn't start without him, he thought it was a good opportunity to scrounge up sellable parts. After the initial questioning, the police...
Alright, yo, I'm not gonna lie, this is crazy. If it's true that the internet, people on the internet really found out, like, the answer to this case, yo, that's crazy smart. I'm not gonna lie, that's crazy smart.
Police asked Wilbur to show them where he discovered the alleged body. As soon as they arrived, an overwhelming stench filled the air, a smell that left no doubt about what lay ahead. Cutting open the fabric, they uncovered the body of a woman in an advanced state of decomposition, laid bare before the horrified
is it the woman?
Upon initial investigation, they were unable to identify the victim, as she had no personal belongings to reveal her name, only what seemed to be a small towel draped over her shoulder with no notable identifying marks.
A towel.
And thus, authorities gave her a haunting name, Tent Girl. a reference to the fact that the green canvas that her body was wrapped
okay.
in was a fabric often used to make tents at the time. No other physical evidence was found at the crime scene to provide investigators with a solid lead. With the initial investigation complete, the body was taken to St. Joseph Hospital in Lexington. There, Dr. James McClellan undertook the unenviable task of determining how this young woman met her tragic end. The autopsy report detailed that the victim was approximately 5 feet 1 inch tall and weighed around 110 pounds.
Okay.
She had reddish brown hair,
Dang.
a noticeable gap
Low key, all right, I'm not gonna lie. 110 pounds is a little bit too light.
between her front teeth and was estimated to be in her late teens. To make matters even more difficult, Tent Girl had no other distinguishing marks to help investigators uncover her identity. Furthermore, advanced decomposition made it challenging to produce an accurate sketch, as the discoloration of the eyes and the altered shape of the nose distorted the original features. It was one of the worst hands an investigator could be dealt, the last thing they want in such a gruesome case. It was approximated that she had been dead for anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. No bullet wounds, stab wounds, or signs of strangulation were found. Due to the body's advanced decomposition, the specific events leading to her death by asphyxiation could not be confirmed. Investigators theorized that Tent Girl may have been struck on the head with a blunt object, rendering her dazed or unconscious. The killer then wrapped her body tightly in the green tarp she was found in, securing both ends and dumping her over the embankment. Trapped inside the tarp, unable to move, see, or call for help in her weakened state, it was believed that the likely cause of death was asphyxiation. A detailed sketch by Covington patrolman Harold Musa was later released to the public in the hope that someone would recognize the young woman. With no other
what's up,
leads,
Wooga?
Police could only pin their hopes on the sketch. That someone would come
Gosh,
forward.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't like that picture, bro. I don't like that sketch. No, she's not, bro. Gosh.
To identify Tent Girl. If not, she might become just another name lost in the shuffle of unsolved cases. On top of that, there was a killer out there on the loose who, for all they knew, could strike again. But if they could identify the victim, perhaps it would lead them on a trail to the killer. Immediately after Tent Girl's sketch was released to the public, more than a dozen people
90s white
arrived
mind. I know.
at the police station wondering if she was their missing loved one. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you looked at it, each person left either disappointed or with renewed hope that their loved one could still be out there, alive and well. In the weeks that followed, police received over 100 calls, each one carrying a desperate voice on the other end of the line. Out of all these potential leads, only 3 showed promise. The first was the case of Loretta Jean Slusser, who was reported missing by her family about a year before the discovery of Tent Girl. A recent update to her case was a reported sighting in Florence, Kentucky, roughly 60 miles from Georgetown. Loretta, who would have been around 16 at the time, matched the description almost to a T, even down to the cavities in her 2 upper front teeth. Miss Slusser's mother was asked to travel to Frankfurt to meet with the state detective in charge of the investigation and provide more details. However, during the interview, it was revealed that Miss Slusser was 5 feet 4 inches tall and not 5 feet 1 inch like the unidentified victim. This immediately took the wind out of the mother and the detective's sails. And then there was no significant update for the Slusser case that we could find. Unfortunately, it seems that she may have become another statistic in the hundreds of unsolved missing person cases locked away in dusty file cabinets. Fortunately, the Tent Girl case would not share the same fate, at least not forever. The second major lead in the investigation pointed to a missing girl from Pasadena named Debbie Crane, last seen on March 3, 1968. Witnesses reported seeing her with 2 men, her boyfriend Carl Colby and his older brother Floyd Colby. This lead came from Detective Sergeant Miller of the Maryland Police, who had come across the Tent Girl case. After seeing the released sketch, he noticed striking similarities between Tent Girl and Debbie Crane. Miller reached out to Chief Detective Lieutenant Algan Roberts in Kentucky, who immediately cross-referenced Crane's description with Tent Girl's, and the similarities were too significant to ignore. Lieutenant Roberts requested that Sergeant Miller escort Debbie's family to Georgetown for an official identification. On June 13, 1968, Debbie's aunt, Velma Crane, made the difficult trip. It was undoubtedly a long and stressful journey, her mind likely plagued by the dreadful possibility of confirming her worst fears. For 2 grueling hours, Velma examined autopsy images, searching for any familiar feature. But with the body badly decomposed, she couldn't positively identify Tent Girl as her niece. Still, there was hope. Debbie's dental records were obtained and initial comparisons suggested a possible match. Just as it seemed the mystery might finally be solved, an anonymous phone call threw everything into question. A man with a gruff voice contacted Sergeant Miller, insisting that Debbie Crane was alive and well in Bradford, Pennsylvania. Before Miller could ask any questions, the caller abruptly hung up. Determined to verify the claim, Miller traveled to Bradford, and to his surprise, he found Debbie and Carl Colby living comfortably, completely unaware of the chaos unraveling 500 miles away. The couple was brought back to Maryland, where they announced to Debbie's parents their plans to marry. Though this lead ultimately ended in another dead end for Tent Girl, on the flip side, Kentucky police had unintentionally helped reunite a daughter with her family, giving at least one family a happy ending. Just when it seemed like the trail to Tent Girl's identity was growing cold, a new call came in from a distraught mother that could potentially solve this case once and for all. She was searching for her 15-year-old daughter, Doris Dittmar.
Award-winning PPE for healthcare and industrial workers that's so comfortable and so protective.
Based on her description of Doris, it once again seemed highly possible that her daughter could be Tent Girl. Every piece of the puzzle seemed to fall neatly into place, and even without being able to verify the body due to its advanced stage of decomposition, Doris's mother began to believe, with a heavy heart, that Tent Girl might actually be her missing daughter. However, just as police were about to release the body to the Dittmars for a proper burial, that prospective door was slammed shut. Doris Dittmar's daughter was found alive and well. As it turned out, she had run away with her boyfriend, frustrated by her mother's constant meddling and nagging about her personal affairs. Another missing daughter who turned out to have only ran away with her boyfriend, leaving the police frustratingly back to square one. These three leads were a bust, so they needed to look at the case from a different angle. Kentucky police uncovered similarities to another murder case in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The lifeless body of 16-year-old Candace Clothier was found wrapped in a canvas tarp roughly a month prior to the discovery of Tent Girl. Was it possible that Tent Girl wasn't the first victim of her killer? Both cases involve the body of a young woman found wrapped in a canvas material. While it can certainly be nothing more than pure coincidence, any clue or lead at this point had to be explored by the authorities. A sample of the tarp used in the Clothier case was sent to the Kentucky State Police Department for analysis. When the results came in, investigators were disappointed to find that the lead might have been a red herring. The fabric in the Clothier case turned out to be from a canvas duffel bag, not the tent-like material used in the other
maybe they're just, I don't know.
Case. Moreover, Candace Clothier's death was ruled an accidental drug overdose, further separating the two investigations. The Clothier case proved to another potential dead end for Kentucky police, as while the two canvas materials were similar, nothing else was discovered to further connect the two murder cases. And just like that, Sheriff Bobby Vance and the Kentucky State Police were back to where they started. Once again, Tent Girl remained a distorted face without a name. Over a month had passed since the body's discovery, and the police hotline dedicated to inquiries about the case had gone from receiving hundreds of calls to zero. It appeared that the moment that police dreaded had finally arrived. Tent Girl was soon to become yet another unsolved case to be filed away and forgotten. Unable to shake a sense that Tent Girl's story wasn't over, Harold Muller spent weeks carefully studying images from the autopsy before drawing a new sketch of the unidentified victim, believing it to be a closer representation of the young woman's appearance in life. This time, Muller gave her face a rounder shape with less prominent cheekbones. What remained consistent, however, was the cavity in her upper front teeth that caused a noticeable gap. That, Muller pointed out, would be the key detail in identifying the victim. With that, Kentucky police released an updated sketch to the public. Then, the authorities did pretty much the only thing they could think of: sit and wait. Over the next couple of months, the case of Tent Girl slowed down to a crawl. Occasionally, there would be new findings, such as forensics being able to lift a partial fingerprint, a painstaking process considering the advanced decomposition of the body. However, this new evidence was like uncovering a lone puzzle piece in a sprawling 1,000-piece mystery. It's something, but it wasn't remotely enough to give investigators a direction of where to go next. 8 months passed, and Georgetown officials were no closer to uncovering Tent Girl's identity, let alone finding her killer. By January 1969, authorities were on the verge of giving up. In an interview with the Kentucky Post, county attorney and lead investigator Virgil Pryor reluctantly admitted that Tent Girl may never be identified. A few months later, Master Detective, a true crime magazine, published an article about the unsolved case of Tent Girl, hoping to reach a wider audience and generate new leads. While its publication initially led nowhere, what no one could have predicted was that this very issue would become a catalyst for a major breakthrough. Exactly 29 years and 11 months later. As the case went cold, responsibility for the investigation fell to the Scott County Sheriff's Office in Kentucky, and over the years, it was passed on from one investigator to another. But with no viable leads, it remained unsolved. And so, buried beneath a nameless tombstone, she was remembered not by a loving inscription from family or friends, but by cold, clinical details. Everything she had been, her identity, her story, was reduced to words taken from her autopsy report, punctuated by a melancholic declaration. Tent Girl, found May 17th, 1968, on U.S. Highway 25 North. Died about April 26th to May 3rd, 1968. Age, about 16 to 19 years.
It's just something about that sketch that just creeps me out, bro.
Height, 5 foot 1 inch. Weight, 110 to 115 pounds. Reddish-brown hair, unidentified. And in this limbo is where Tent Girl would remain for the next 3 decades. October 1987. Todd Matthews, a 17-year-old factory worker, was on his way to meet up with...
This dude's 17? I mean, I'm 17, but this dude's 17?
Friends to hang out for the evening. With Halloween just around the corner, the group decided to swap scary stories. They shared the usual ghost tales, the kind you would expect around a campfire. But then, it was Lori Ann's turn. Todd, who was undeniably smitten with her, hung on to every word.
Well, now okay, you know what? Now he's older, obviously.
But Lori wasn't telling an over-the-top urban legend. No, her story was different. It was real. A gruesome crime that had haunted her own father for years. You see, Lori Ann's full name was Lori Ann Riddle, and her father was Wilbur Riddle, the man who discovered the body.
Oh my gosh! I keep checking behind me. I'm looking a little bit scared, but I'm like, it's like puzzle pieces are like connecting. I'm like, oh my gosh! When I tell you, this is like some Oda type of foreshadowment. We got the father and the daughter and all this like 30 years later. Like, wow. Like, who would know? But hey, let's keep listening. But this is like some crazy shit.
Tent Girl. That night would set Todd Matthews on a path he never could have anticipated. And as fate would have it, Lori Ann would also become his future wife. From that night on, Todd became determined to uncover the identity of Tent Girl. This drive may have been shaped by his own past. As it turned out, he had a brother and sister who passed away as infants. He knew the pain of losing loved ones in ways that felt unfair and unresolved. He empathized with Tent Girl and believed that she, along with her family, deserved closure and to have whoever did this to her put to justice. Her tragic story lingered in his mind, planting the seeds of an obsession, one that would push him to search for answers, no matter how impossible and pointless it seemed. But how could a young, inexperienced kid take on a mystery that even seasoned investigators failed to solve? With his curiosity piqued, Todd dove into the case head first. He pored over stacks of old newspaper clippings, read through interviews, and wrote down every detail, committing them to memory. Wanting a first-hand account, he turned to his future father-in-law, Wilbur Riddle. Maybe, with a fresh set of eyes, Todd could spot something investigators had missed. During their talks, one particular clue stood out: Tent Girl's age. Reports consistently stated that she was likely in her late teens, but Mr. Riddle, haunted by the image of that night, could swear she looked older than that. Had investigators fixated too much on this estimate, unintentionally narrowing their search? It was a thought Todd couldn't shake as he listened to Riddle's account of May 17th, 1968. In addition, there was the towel that was found with the body. What at first may have seemed to be an ordinary towel of little to no significance might actually have been the type commonly used as an infant's diaper. Armed with this new detail, Todd shifted his investigation in an entirely new direction. What if Tent Girl wasn't a teenager as originally believed?
A mother.
What if she was actually a mother and an adult?
Whoa! Yo, this dude! Wow!
Todd pressed on, chasing the truth with the relentless hunger of a detective in one of those dime store pulp magazines that he read as a kid. But this was the 80s. There was no internet. No easily accessible digital database, just sweat, persistence, and miles of paperwork to sift through. He tracked every possible thread, linking Tent Girl to other missing persons cases, always with the hope that one would be that crucial piece of the puzzle. And each time, he ended up right where he started, staring at a grave with no name. For the next 10 years, this became his life, a ritual of obsession, a marathon where the finish line seemed to keep moving further ahead. The frustration gnawed at him, the same thought looping in his mind. I'm close, I know I am. But the truth was like a puff of smoke, always within arm's reach, yet impossible to hold. It had already put a strain on his marriage due to the piling phone bills and travel expenses. His wife, Lori, could not wrap her head around this obsession that Todd had for this particular case. This frustration, which was understandable, led to regular arguments. Arguments that just got worse as time went by. Arguments that Todd himself couldn't even fully justify. But for Todd, this was not an obsession. It had become an obligation. But during this time,
10 minutes
he
left.
made a crucial decision. As much as he felt it was his duty to uncover the truth about Tent Girl's identity, he refused to let his obsession take priority over his loved ones. The countless hours he dedicated to this personal mission were not all for naught, though. Over the years, he transformed from an inexperienced amateur, armed with only determination, into a more methodical and seasoned investigator, developing a sharp eye for detail and a more structured approach to his search. And so, every night after his family was in bed, he retreated to his makeshift office, poring over every piece of evidence, searching for patterns. He wasn't just looking for clues. He was trying to find the one connection that could finally give his investigation a clear path forward. After a while, Todd felt like he was running in circles. But then, a new tool emerged that changed everything. By the early 1990s, the internet was slowly becoming an integral part of society. Todd Matthews recognized its potential immediately, not just as a new technology, but as a powerful tool to connect people in an instant, making it easier than ever to share information across vast distances. With email, he could now contact sources faster than ever before. Government agency records were suddenly at his fingertips. Reaching out to media networks was no longer a slow, tedious process. The internet wasn't just changing the way people communicated, it was transforming the way investigations were conducted. Yes. And for someone as relentless as Todd, this wasn't just an advantage, it was a game changer. Determined to put this new tool to use, Todd launched TentGirl.com in 1997. The domain
there it is,
sold now and contains
tentgirl.net.
vastly different content, but back then, this is where he compiled every piece of information he had gathered about the case. Every detail, every clue was carefully documented and made available to the public. A decade's worth of investigation, now just a click away for the growing network of like-minded individuals eager to help. Each night, he spent hours reading through messages and working with other internet detectives, searching for that one connection that could finally solve the mystery of Tent Girl's identity.
Yes.
Then, 1 year later, a missing persons listing appeared on his screen, one that stopped him in his tracks. His gut told him to take a closer look. It was an evening like any other for Todd. Once everyone had gone to sleep, he settled into his usual routine, checking emails, scrolling through countless missing persons listings, and scanning for anything that might stand out. His eyes burned from hours of staring at the screen. Dozens of posts blurred together, none matching the keywords he had been searching for. Then, one entry seemed to surface from the depths of his screen, almost as if it had been waiting for him to find it. 3 words stopped him in his tracks. Lexington, 1967, missing. The post was by a woman named Rosemary Westbrook. She was searching for her missing sister, Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor. It read, "My sister Barbara has been missing from our family since the latter part of 1967. She has brown hair, brown eyes, is around 5 feet 2 inches tall, and was last seen in the Lexington, Kentucky area."
Wow!
For any information, please contact me at the address posted. If he had gone with the original assumption that the Tent Girl was a teenager, he might have ignored this. But she was marked as 24 at the time she went missing. She was still young, and could have also been a mother. A ripple of excitement surged through Todd. Even before contacting Westbrook, his gut told him this was it. He had finally done it. He had finally uncovered the identity of Tent Girl. His hands trembled as he typed a reply, his mind racing faster than his fingers could move. The moment he hit send, a rush of adrenaline overtook him. He shot up from his chair, nearly stumbling in the process, and bolted straight to the bedroom to tell his wife. "Lori, wake up!" he shouted. "I found her!" Todd and Rosemary talked at length about her sister. Together, they meticulously compared every known detail.
What?
The height, the hair color, even the cavity on the upper front teeth. Everything matched. But Todd knew better than to get ahead of himself. He and the professional detectives who had worked on the case prior to his involvement had all been here before, hopeful leads that ultimately led nowhere. This time, though, there was another technological game changer: DNA testing, a tool investigators never had back then. If they were right, they were on the verge of solving a 3-decades-old mystery. But if they were wrong, could his resolve withstand another disappointment? Todd helped Rosemary reach out to the Kentucky State Forensic Medical Examiner, but they weren't exactly eager to entertain his request. You have to remember this was the early days of the internet, and if amateur cyber sleuths aren't taken seriously now, they certainly weren't then. But of course, Todd wasn't one to back down, especially not now when he felt they were this close to the truth after spending nearly 2 decades chasing it.
Wow.
With persistence and a growing pile of compelling evidence, Kentucky officials finally began to see it. That this guy might actually be onto something. Investigators exhumed the remains of Tent Girl to conduct a DNA test. Using samples from Rosemary Westbrook herself and from Tent Girl's teeth and bones, forensic examiners meticulously cross-referenced the data, searching for a definitive match that would confirm that she was indeed her sister. But for the next few weeks, Todd Matthews,
Why are you
Rosemary
so
Westbrook,
scared?
and
I
the
am,
investigators could do nothing but wait for the results. And then, on April 26, 1998, nearly 30 years after her body was found, the DNA came back as a match.
Wow.
The Tent Girl finally had a name. She was Rosemary's sister, Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor, born September 12, 1943, in East St. Louis, St. Clair County, Illinois. She was just 24 years old at the time of her death. With the pivotal piece of the puzzle finally in place, one question remained: who killed Barbara and left her discarded like trash on the side of the road nearly 30 years ago? And why? Now armed with her identity, investigators uncovered multiple key details. Barbara was married to George Earl Taylor, a carnival worker. They also learned that at the time of her disappearance and death, Barbara and George had an 8-month-old daughter. These 2 details alone shed light to 2 other major elements of her case. The green tarp Barbara's body was wrapped in, it was the same type of canvas commonly used in circus tents.
No
way!
way.
The towel found with her remains, it wasn't just any towel, it was a cloth diaper, the kind often used for infants. Everything was beginning to fall into place. And when it came to a suspect, investigators had only one name in mind: George Earl Taylor, her husband. The biggest reason? George never reported his wife missing.
Oh my gosh, that's facts. Oh my gosh, that's facts. Oh my gosh, that's facts. Oh my gosh, that's facts.
Instead, he simply told Barbara's family she had left him for another man. Not only did he fail to search for her, but he was also known for his explosive temper. And the tarp Barbara was found in? It was easily accessible to George through his work at the carnival. Alas, while this theory is quite compelling, the question of who killed Barbara may never be fully answered, and the person responsible will never face justice.
Whoa.
Stop with the ad! No!
Guys.
George Earl Taylor, the prime
George
suspect,
Earl
died of
Taylor
cancer in October 1987, more than a decade before Barbara was finally identified.
Wow. It took 30. Oh my gosh. Who would have known that this case that happened 30 years, like 30 years later, would be found by some random guy?
And with him gone, so too was the chance for investigators to interrogate him and press for the truth. The case remains officially unsolved, but for Barbara's family, at least one mystery was finally put to rest.
Wow.
Her name was returned to her. Her body remains in Georgetown Cemetery, where her tombstone has been changed to add a few crucial details. Barbara Ann Bobby Hackman, September 12, 1943.
Why do I keep looking
December
back?
6, 1967. Loving mother, grandmother, and sister. And with that, the mystery of Tent Girl's identity was solved, thanks to the persistence of one Todd Matthews, whose determination led to the discovery.
Hey, can we get a round of applause for Todd? Round of applause for Todd, man. Todd Matthews. Who would have known a campfire story would get a 17-year-old boy up out of his seat and devote 10 years into looking for a dead woman's name. Hey, shout out Todd, man. Shout out Todd.
His identity, which had eluded investigators for close to 30 years. So, what did Todd Matthews do after such a groundbreaking achievement of being the one to solve the internet's first cold case mystery? Unsurprisingly, Todd continued assisting in the investigation of other missing person cases. He helped found the Doe Network, a nonprofit organization comprised of volunteer amateur cyber sleuths who work along with investigators to determine the identity of John and Jane Does, like Barbara Ann Hackman, and help families find missing loved ones.
Wow.
As a pioneer in cyber sleuthing, Todd also worked as a consultant for various film and TV projects.
Nose blow. Nose blow, nose blow, nose blow. Oh my gosh.
One of his most notable clients being filmmaker Jerry Bruckheimer. Additionally, he served as the former director of case management and communications for NAMUS.gov, the national online database for missing and unidentified persons. On January 3rd, 2024, at the age of 53, Todd Matthews passed away at his home in Livingston, Tennessee, leaves behind his beloved wife, Lori Ann Riddle Matthews, and his sons, Dylan and Devin Matthews.
Rest in
both of
peace,
whom have
GOAT.
families of their own, making Todd a grandfather of two. While Todd may no longer be with us, the impact he made on the online detective community will live on, ensuring his legacy endures for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button.
Hey, rest in peace, Todd. Great man. Great man. All right. Great man. So that was, oh my gosh, like, at the beginning, like, I was looking scared. I was like, yo, I hope nobody, like, pops out of, like, there and, like, kills me. But, yo, gang, like, that's insane. Minecraft, and we got it. But that's, like, insane how it took that long to solve a case. The police thought that it would be impossible to solve. That's wild. That's wild. All right. Well,